Good evening, everyone, or whatever time you're watching this. We're back for another NHL team preview, and we're moving to Western New York to talk about the Buffalo Sabres, who come off a disappointing finish last season, where they fired, at that time, the longest tenured coach in the NHL, in Lindy Ruff, and replaced him with their AHL affiliates head coach, Ron Rolston, who finished the season out and was extended into this season. The Sabres this year look like one of the worst teams in the NHL. Their two top stars, Thomas Vanek and Ryan Miller, are in the last year of their contract, and who knows if they're here by the time the NHL playoffs kick around, which the Sabres will not be a part of. And now the Sabres are really counting on Miller to regain his Vezina form, but he's going to have to spend most of the time building out a less than average team. And behind Miller is former second round pick Jonas Enroth, who, despite being undersized, is a fairly good backup, one of the better backups in the NHL, a guy who may end up starting a lot more games than he has before at the NHL level with a trade of Miller. If the Sabres do trade Miller, look for the Rochester Americans starting goalie Matt Hackett to be the guy called up to back up Enroth. They acquired him last year in the Jason Pominville trade with the Minnesota Wild. We move to the defense now, and it's all about Tyler Myers. Can he regain his Calder Trophy winning form as when he won Rookie of the Year? It's a big question. They signed him to an extension, and he has not been good since that year. The big acquisition they made in the offseason was acquiring Myers' defense partner his rookie season, Henrik Tallinder from the New Jersey Devils. He's also in the last year of his contract. You don't know, maybe at the deadline someone wants to pick up his veteran experience. Still a very good defenseman for a middle pairing. We look at their other defensemen. They're led by Christian Ehrhoff, who's ever since signing a 10-year, $40 million deal, has played over 20 minutes a game for the Sabres, racking it at about 24 minutes a game. Great on the power play. Not really number one defenseman. You'd like that to be Myers, but he hasn't played up to that level like he did in his rookie season. Ehrhoff's more your number two, number three defenseman. We look at the other offseason trade they made. They traded Andre Sekera, who was a very good player, well signed to a great team contract to Carolina, for Jamie McBain and a second-round pick. Jamie McBain is a guy who's not a great 5-on-5 player, but a power play specialist. He really hasn't developed now that he's exiting really that stage as a prospect and is more an established NHLer, and he's the sixth defenseman who you can't count on anything more than a power play. We look at the Sabres youth movement, and it starts with Mark Pysyk and Rasmus Ristolainen. Both players were former first-round picks of the Sabres. Both will be given every chance to play at the NHL level. I expect them to have their growing pains in their first full season, but I think the future is bright with both of them. Ristolainen can be a top pairing guy. I think that Pysyk is an elite second pairing guy, but I don't think he's got the all-around game of Ristolainen, the physical ability of Ristolainen, who has been playing in the top league of the Finnish Elite League since he was 16 years old. We'll go down now to the bottom two defensemen. That's Mike Weber, the Sabres gave a 3-year, $5 million extension to. He's your tough physical defenseman, your grit guy you don't like playing against. He's going to hit you, he's going to punch you in the mouth, he's going to slash you. He's their fifth defenseman. He's going to be out there killing penalties, blocking shots, doing all the dirty work. And then you have Alexander Salser, who was serviceable since he came over and traded with the Vancouver Canucks, but he's nothing more than a sixth or seventh defenseman, and expect him to see most of his nights in the press box. Now let's go to the forwards, where we've already mentioned Thomas Vanek, contract year. He's looking for that last big NHL playoff, and he is an elite goal scorer, but he's had to play with less than stellar talent. His center is probably the second best forward on the Sabres, and that's Cody Hodgson, who Sabres gave a big 6-year extension to for $27 million. I think that Hodgson has talent, but I'm not sure if he was worth that much money when you look at what other guys got in bridge contracts. I think that Hodgson can develop into a average number one center, but really you want him to be your number 2 center. He doesn't have that elite talent. He's not the greatest skater. He's dealt with some conditioning problems. He's not a complete player in the sense that he doesn't play a two-way game. Then we look at the player that the Sabres named captain for their road games. That's Steve Ott. They acquired him in the trade with Dallas last year for Derek Roy. Ott instantly became a fan favorite for his hard-nosed, gritty play. Not afraid to stick his nose in there, but a guy who really is getting more praise than he deserves. He's an elite third-line player, nothing more. We look at another former first-round pick of the Sabres. That's Tyler Ennis. He's small, 5'9", elite speed, but they've really sort of been playing him out of position as center. He is better suited as a left winger where he can use his speed and doesn't have to have the defensive responsibilities of a center. So it'll be interesting to see where they end up playing him. A left winger to watch for the Sabres would be Marcus Foligno. He had a great debut 2 years ago with the Sabres for 15 games where he was playing at almost a point a game clip. He's not that player, but he can be a very good power forward on either second or third line. He's never going to be a guy that you confuse for a 40-goal scorer, but he can easily develop into a 20-goal scorer, a physical, big presence in front of the net, who gives defensemen a long night. Now we're going to talk about a bit of the youth movement, but first let's round out the Sabres' other veteran presence. You have the overpaid Ville Lino, who would have been a buyout candidate had he not had a hip injury at the time. He could still be bought up next season if his play doesn't pick up. Drew Stafford has had a disappointing season since he signed his 4-year, $16 million extension a few years ago after he was scoring at a half-goal a game clip when he broke 30 for the first time. You can expect him to be a trade candidate at the trade deadline. Look at other guys: Cody McCormick, fourth line center; Patrick Kletta, fourth line agitator; and John Scott, fourth line enforcer. Now let's go talk about the youth movement. You've got Brian Flynn, who, yes, youth may not be the best way to describe him, but he's going to be picking up minutes. Really a fourth line AHL type talent, but the Sabres are going to be playing him on the third line. Zemnis Girgensson, who is their first round pick, along with Mikhail Grigorenko, the draft before last. Both guys really should not be playing at the NHL level as much as I don't like to admit it. Girgensson really didn't show a lot at the AHL level, but he can be an elite third-line center in the NHL. He's going to be a player that plays great defense, while Grigorenko can be an elite first-line talent if he puts it together. He's got all the offensive talent, but it's just a matter of him finding his game at the NHL level. And just getting rid of that label as a floater. He's got great talent with his hands. He's big, but he needs more seasoning, and the problem is they can't send him to the AHL, and they don't see the benefit of sending him back to the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. We look now to a guy who could see time on the third, fourth lines as a winger or a center. That's Johan Larsson, former second-round pick. The Swedish forward was acquired in a trade with the Minnesota Wild for Jason Pominville. He's the most ready of their youth movement guys. I expect him to get more playing time than Grigorenko and Girgensson in terms of minutes per game. Let's round out the young players with Corey Trop, who was a former third-round pick. He's going to be your fourth line checking forward. Now, if you've noticed, I've said a lot of third and fourth line guys, but the problem is the Sabres are playing these guys in their first and second lines, and they're just bumping everybody up, which is never a good combo. That's why I'm picking the Sabres to finish in the bottom three of the Eastern Conference. I think this is a team that's building towards 2018 when their young talent develop, and I think it's going to be a long season for the Sabres. It's going to see a lot of guys traded out of Buffalo for draft picks and prospects. That's my preview for the Sabres. Thanks for watching.